Hey, everybody, it's Mr. Sova again, and it's the week of March 1st. Happy March. And one of the two books I'm going to read today, or actually both of the books I'm going to read this week, are by one of my new favorite authors, Matt Della Peña. He's a Newbery winning, medal-winning author. The Newbery is an award given to authors of children's books. And he often worked with a Caldecott Honor winning illustrator. The Caldecott Honor is an award given to illustrators. His name is Christian Robinson, and they also wrote and illustrated Last Stop on Market Street. You may have heard of that book. This is the first book that they collaborated on, the first book they worked on, and it's called Carmela Full of Wishes. And this is about a little girl named Carmela, and she finds a dandelion, and her mind gets full of wishes that she might be able to use the dandelion for. So before I read the book, I wanted to ask you, have you ever made a wish? And how did you make it? Birthday cake? Shooting star? Wishbone, dandelion. So think about that, and maybe you'll have some connections with Carmela as I read the book. Also, you might have some connections with Carmela's life or her brother who's in the book. You might also share some similar wishes with Carmela as I read Carmela, Full of Wishes, written by Matt Della Peña, illustrated by Christian Robinson. Carmela, Full of Wishes. Carmela scooted along the uneven dirt path, watching men stoop to work with their hands, her birthday bracelets jingling and jangling. The thick greenhouse air smelled of marigolds and overturned earth and fresh manure. Carmela knew exactly what manure was, but she didn't want to think about that. Not today. So I've got a connection on this page. I've gone on bike rides in Central California before, and I've ridden past fields of vegetables and fruit sometimes where men and women are doing really hard work picking those fruits and vegetables. Today, Carmela awoke to candles in her pancakes and her mom saying, "Happy birthday to you," and told her, "Go on, mija, make a wish." But Carmela's wish had already come true. She was finally old enough to go with her big brother. Carmela followed as he cut back onto the street at Freedom Boulevard, past the crowded bus stop and fenced-off repair shop, past the old folks' home where the two hunched old women waved smiles, past the huge home improvement store where her dad used to stand around weekend mornings waiting for work. And I've seen that too at Home Depots and Lowe's, and really hardworking people wanting to get a job for the day. Carmela tried to make small talk with her brother as their metal cart rattled, but her brother didn't make small talk back. He didn't want her tagging along. "Too bad," she said with her glare. That was a glare. Just outside the laundromat, she picked a lone dandelion growing among the concrete weeds. She pulled a breath and leaned toward the fuzzy white bulb, but just before she could blow, her brother butted in. "Did you make a wish? You're supposed to make a wish. Everyone knows that." "Of course I made a wish," she said, but it was a lie. Carmela didn't know. Carmela helped her brother sort colors one-handed, helped him load the washers one item at a time. While their clothes spun, her imagination turned, each new thought ushered in by a jingle of her bracelets. Her brother found the sound annoying and shot her a dirty look. Too bad, she said with her glare. She jingled her bracelets as she rode up to Miss Maria's vegetable stand, imagining a machine built into her bedroom wall, one that would spit out anything she could think of, but mostly candy. She jingled her bracelets in line at the locksmith's shop, imagining her mom sleeping in one of those fancy hotel beds she spent all day making up for fancy guests. So that tells me that her mom must be, what does her mom do for work? Yeah, that tells me she's a housekeeper in a fancy hotel. Carmela jingled her bracelets at the bodega down the block from their old apartment building. The bodega is a little grocery store or a corner store. Imagining her dad getting his papers fixed so he could finally be home. And what that means is her father doesn't live with the family because he needs to get immigration papers fixed so he can come back to the United States and live with them and be with them and work. Carmela jingled her bracelets outside the pharmacy, eyeing the shiny new bikes in the window. Her brother stopped in his tracks. "Why do you have to be so annoying?" She thrummed her bracelets at him and said, "It's a free country." Do you have any connections with that page? The only time she didn't reach for her bracelets was when her brother ducked into his friend's house. Carmela slumped down on the curb, silently imagining all the things that she could turn him into. A cockroach scurrying away from the light, the slimy pink tail of a rat, a wheelbarrow full of manure left in the sun. Ew. She stared down at the dandelion in her hand. It seemed so much more important now that she knew it was a place to put her wishes. What if she made the wrong choice? Carmela tried to hop a curb on the long trip home, but her tire caught and her handlebars twisted and she went crashing to the concrete. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. But then she saw her dandelion crushed beside the drain. She looked up at her big brother, warm tears rolling down her cheeks. She shook her head. He lifted up her scooter. "You okay?" She shook her head and pointed. "My wish." He took her by the arm and led her back up the block, past the laundromat and the flea market, past the greenhouses and the smell of manure, past the overgrown park and across the train tracks. He didn't stop until they made it to an abandoned farmhouse near a cliff overlooking the sea. "Close your eyes," he said. Carmela closed them. "Now make your wish," he said. Carmela listened to the ocean's hum in the distance. She listened to the squawking birds. She listened to the wind whistling past her ears. Then she opened her eyes. She saw hundreds of tiny white dandelion spores lifting into the air, floating out toward the far off surf. The sky was full of wishes. "Let's go," her brother said. "Don't you want to know my wish?" she asked. He shook his head. "If you tell, it won't come true." She looked back one last time, then took off her bracelets and followed her brother home. Oh, look, there's a photo of Matt de la Peña and a photo of Christian Robinson, the illustrator. Oh my goodness, what a great book. What a great author and what a great illustrator. I do hope you enjoyed it, my dears. And I have a question for you. You know I have questions for you all the time. Do you think we should have known what Carmela's wish was? Or do you think it's better not to know and for us to use our imaginations to figure out what it was, or just make up a wish? The answer is up to you. I hope you enjoyed the book, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye, everybody.